Hey guys, it's your girl Jody Ann, also known as I Go By Joe, and this is the E Project. Let's start the show. Hey everyone, it's your host Jody Ann. Welcome back to another episode. I'm here with another amazing entrepreneur. His name is Tristan Barrocks. He is also very well known as the Digital Storyteller here in Toronto and internationally. So welcome, Tristan.
Hey, thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to be here, Jody Ann. I am super honored and excited to just jump into this interview and talk a little bit about my journey.
Thank you so much. This is such a special interview, guys, because Tristan and I met. It hasn't even been a full year yet. It'll be a year in March. That we started actually connecting more. Like I'd seen you in passing, but our real connection was like 2017 in March.
Actually, I just checked my my Facebook memories, and it actually showed that we had a memory because we did the Black History project last year. Yeah, which was kind of amazing.
That was really dope. Black man in a white world.
Yes.
So that was really dope.
Visual journal.
Visual journal. So that was really cool. So welcome, Tristan, and I'm really honored to have you and interview you because you are, I consider, like I've said it many times, like my big brother, friend, and just creative like partner in crime. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I feel very welcome.
So for those that don't know you, of course, I shouldn't say of course because you're well known in the city, to be quite honest. Your family's pretty renowned and known for your creativity. Your dad's a photographer.
Yes.
Your sister's a bomb makeup artist.
Yes.
Your brother's also a bomb creative.
And a low-key, my sister's a low-key photographer that will never talk about it.
Low-key photographer. So, but yeah, introduce yourself and let us know who you are and what you do.
My name is Tristan Jason Barrocks, and I am 34 years old. I grew up in Toronto, and two wonderful parents, Jamaican heritage, which is amazing. Love up Jamaica, Jam Rock.
Big up Jamaica. Okay, I'm done.
I started this journey as a theater arts actor, so a theatrical actor, and loved that process, and that was a great experience. Went into film and television acting, and really wanted to kind of rebrand myself because I was tired of being kind of the stereotypical drug dealer, pimp, or guy in jail. And out of that, something amazing happened, which was I really found my passion, which was being behind the camera and telling stories, great stories. And one day I just really felt like, this sort of digital media wave, so like video, photography, and graphic design, this is really what I was, was an extension of who I was. And I just really wanted to melt that together. So I started to call myself the Digital Storyteller, and the rest is history. I mean, people have really responded to my work, and really the crux of it, or the heart of what I do, is I tell stories. I'm just a storyteller, and my vehicle or my vessel or my tool is using new media and digital media. So it may change. It may, when I was younger, it was acting and it was theatrical arts. And visual, like painting and things of that nature. And right now it's digital media. It may change into music in years, to come, but we don't know, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's dope. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. The theater part, I didn't know how deep that was because we hadn't actually ever spoke about that.
Yeah.
So it's nice, actually refreshing to hear you talk about that side of your journey.
Well, the thing that was kind of crazy about going to theater, I never ever even thought about it, and there was something happening, like there was some auditions for like a kids musical at my church, and my parents were like, you're gonna go audition. I'm like, why? I don't want to do this, I just want to just do whatever, just be a part of the choir. And long story short, I kind of blew away the audition, and they gave me like the lead role, but as like the enemy, and I was so devastated because I wanted to be a good person.
Yeah.
But long story short, that took me on the journey of creativity and really finding out that the arts was my thing. Before that, I was like, I didn't feel like I was the smartest, the most attractive, or even the really the most sought out person in my family, or even in a group of my friends. And when I found the arts, I found my identity, and I found a space where I could be myself, and at the same time elevate people around me, which was like something that was totally new for me, because I just thought I was just a nobody, just an average Joe, third child out of 4 in my family, and I didn't really have anything special to offer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So are you the middle? No, you're
So
third.
so I have two older brothers, one younger sister. All of us are in the arts in some way.
Okay.
My oldest brother is in actually film and television arts. He's a set deck supervisor in Toronto. Love him. His name's Albert Barrocks. Then we got Sheldon, who's a writer, and myself, Tristan, and then my sister Krukri, who is an undercover photographer, but really is passionate about just being a beautician and an esthetician and things of that nature. So,
Oh, it's awesome. So when you speak about your family, obviously it's like embedded that you guys are all uber creative.
Yeah.
So stemming obviously from the branch
Yes.
or the tree, which is your parents.
Yes.
So in saying that, I find it interesting because usually parents that are like, they're uber creative.
Yeah.
But was there ever any pressure for them to like, do they push the creativity on you guys, or was it more the like, no, you guys are going to be more academically, more on that kind of that scale? Because I find it with parents sometimes, if they, even though they have their journey, they always want to not push, but like encourage you to do certain things academically.
Yeah.
So I find it kind of refreshing that they were very open and happy that just do what you love.
Well,
if it's the arts, it's the arts.
You know what? It's so funny because when I look back at my life, I really do have to say I was really blessed with great parents. Although they were from the West Indies, they didn't hold or carry a lot of the traditional West Indian values or mentalities in terms of, just find a government job, find a stable job, lock into it, and just do that.
Okay.
My father was an entrepreneur. So while he both my parents migrated here in the 70s, early to late 70s, and then they started a life, and my dad's a grinder. Like, he had 2 kids. He was going to Ryerson. He during the day, and then during the evening he was working like a full-time job, like being a busboy, at downtown restaurant. I forgot what it was called. And then from there he went, basically started literally from the bottom at Toronto Hydro. And while he was working at Toronto Hydro, becoming a supervisor and a manager, on the weekends he would do 2 or 3 weddings a weekend, like nonstop photography. And while he was doing that, he went back to Humber. This was like the late 80s, early 90s, and he was dragging me every Wednesday night and every Thursday night because I was like his model. So he literally has hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of me testing out different things. I was always in the dark room with him and different things like that. So it was just embedded into us. And the big thing is that both my parents, they just wanted us to have a good foundation. So obviously, reading, writing, math, science, having some of those solid sort of things in our life and making sure that we were academically sound. But outside of that, they really desired us to follow our purpose and our passion. So, from my oldest brother, he was into hip hop. My middle brother, Sheldon, was into more sports and athletics, and he was more of the academic. And then I was totally the artist.
Okay.
So, and then obviously same thing with Krukri. So for them, they were very sensitive to the trajectories of each child and understanding how to respond in an appropriate fashion once they saw our gifts starting to shine and show. So instead of being, proactive and just saying, or being more dictator, like in the sense of, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, they understood how to transition from being our parents to being our guardians and guiding us to the right path and the right sort of flow in life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's truly a blessing.
Yeah. I mean, and it wasn't, you have to understand, like, I grew up in this sort of environment. So when I started to meet other people that didn't, it was really hard for me because I was like, but if you know in your gut this is what you're supposed to do with your life, or if you're really good at certain things, or if you're really focused on attaining certain goals and it may not align with your parents' goals, why wouldn't they be supportive? But what I had to realize was that it's not that our parents aren't supportive of us, but you have to understand, as we're growing, they're growing as well. So they're transitioning from being, our guardians and and sort of like our parents and just really telling us how life is going to be and where to go, to now transitioning to, okay, now they're becoming adults and I have to understand how I can still be a good influence to them and not lose that relationship, right? So a lot of times what I tell people is, if you're having trouble communicating with your parents or kind of getting on the same page, just remember that they just want to make sure that you have a plan B and plan C. So even if you can't get to being, the top rapper in the game or whatever it is, make sure that you have a plan B. You know what I mean? Make sure that you get the certificate or the degree, or you do the night school classes, and you have viable skills, because we live in a global economy, which means that we have global competition. So what's your plan? How are you mapping out your plan? And really, all of those other sort of concerns with parents will subside.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you said have a plan B or C.
Yeah.
Because I've heard so many times, even more recently, from different people, like motivational speakers, or even like Will Smith has talked on this a lot, is do not have a plan B or C, because if you have a plan B, it's like your fallback. So you're like, okay, just in case this doesn't work out, I have this. So it's almost like you're giving yourself that out. So it's like I've heard just having a plan A, and that's your plan, and you work hard and you push towards that. That's kind of like what. But I'm saying, obviously, there's different levels to it. But so I just find it interesting when you mentioned the plan B. I wanted to bring that up.
So here's the thing, right? We're in a building right now, right? What if they designed a building and it only had one exit? That wouldn't make much sense, right? Because people are in other parts of the building and different things are happening in other parts of the building. So they designed it in a way where there's a couple different exit strategies in order to still allow this building to be useful and to be relevant and to make sense, to be functional. And I think with our goals and our aspirations, we should do the same thing. So here's the thing. I never changed the DNA of who or what I was. I'm still an artist.
Yeah.
I just changed the channel by which I plug into to be able to express that art. So the first phase of sort of my journey was I was a theatrical artist. I wanted to be the next Denzel. I said, I don't care, I'm going to win. When Denzel won in 2000 or 2001 for I forgot that I think it was Training Day. I was like, yo, okay, I'm going to be next. I'm going to be next. I'm coming out of Canada. I'm going to do it. And then slowly I realized that wasn't my life's path, right? So in a sense, I had to readjust and recalibrate what success meant to me and how I could gauge my happiness and where I want to go in my life. So when I say plan B and plan C, I'm not saying to have drastically different things. Like, I'm not saying, study sociology and then all of a sudden go into the circus. You know what I mean? If that doesn't work. What I'm saying is that, okay, maybe the acting route didn't work, but now I'm in film and television by creating, digital stories, right, through using film. So I'm still using that same part of my brain. I'm still in my focus, fully committed to my purpose, but I'm just expressing it in a different way.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I knew that's because I know you.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of get more clarification on it for everyone,
sure.
other viewers, because I know people are going to be thinking like, so I thought you should have a plan B. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like that you broke it down and saying it's not drastically different. It's just more of a, what's I'm looking for. It's just kind of something that just
in life. Here's the thing. In life, you need to know and understand how to be flexible and how to pivot.
Yes.
Because there's always going to be points in your life where you're going to have to learn how to pivot, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, where I had to learn right on the fly.
Yeah.
But if you're not able to pivot and reposition yourself, then you're not going to really find the success that you may want out of life, because the reality is that you're inflexible, right? You're like a tree that doesn't know how to, how to move. Obviously, trees can't move, but you understand what I'm saying? Like you're a living thing that is constantly changing, and the world is changing around you. You have to be flexible and pliable in order to be successful in this global economy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about your transition.
Yeah.
So, or your pivot, I should say.
Yeah.
So from doing, of course, like the acting, the theater work, and then now to the digital storyteller.
Yeah.
What's your journey been like, sort of in that process of being the digital storyteller, like, and what exactly that you do for your clients?
Yeah. So
and for yourself.
Yeah. So I guess the question is twofold, kind of like what has been my journey to get to becoming the digital storyteller, and then what is a digital storyteller?
What does that entail? Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah. So I got out of school. I graduated actually from Seneca College. Dope college. And I thought that what I needed to do was get a corporate job. Me, a creative person, get a corporate job and plug in. And I was not happy with that. Bounced around a little bit, worked for Apple for several years, Apple retail. A lot of people don't know that. That's where I learned a lot of my skills, and I was able to kind of connect with people and learn more about myself. And I got to a point where I was actually plugged into a great government job paid the bills, was able to secure a mortgage for my home, was able to get like, everything like the Canadian dream, the dream, right?
The Canadian dream.
Yeah, the Canadian dream. You get to have I was married, I had 2 kids, and I had my house, and I could pay my bills. That's like the black immigrant in general dream, right? Is that you can pay your bills and you can have a pension.
Yeah.
And I ended up losing that job because I was only on a contract and they didn't re-sign me, and I was like, what's going on, right? Like, hey God, I thought this was like the hookup that you were hooking me up with.
Yeah.
And I looked at my wife and she's like, you know what? If not now, then when? And what she was referring to was the whole idea of really believing in my dream to be an entrepreneur. I grew up seeing my father be a part-time entrepreneur and then go full-time and just say, like, walk away from his day job and say, like, I'm going to do this full-time. And 20, 30 years later, he's still an entrepreneur.
That's amazing.
But yet I felt this fear. This fear to step out and just jump off the cliff, in the words of Steve Harvey, and allow the parachute to actually open up in my life. So I did. 2 years ago, a little bit over 2 years ago, I did, and I stepped out and I started my own. I didn't really start my own business. I just continued on and expanded and became available all the time. Quick tip, and something that somebody really smart told me when I started to become a full-time entrepreneur, is that the person said to me, Tristan, now you'll understand the value of being available. And what he was saying was that, a lot of people don't take you seriously until you take yourself seriously. Until you say, hey, listen, I believe in myself enough to really build my own business and build my own brand. And also, just from a practical standpoint, your greatest ability is your availability. If you're not available 12 p.m. in the afternoon on a Thursday, then they're going to find somebody else that is doing it full time. If you're not available, 10 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning because you got a part-time job and you're not doing this full time, that client is going to pick somebody else. So the very fact that you're available makes you go almost at the top of the list. And then obviously skills, talents, abilities, that chemistry you have with clients matters. But what matters most is, can I book you when I need to book you? Can I connect with you? Can we create something dope when I need it? You know what I mean? Not necessarily when you're free and when you can get the time off. And that's the difference between a lot of people that do full-time to the people that do a part-time grind. And I understand the part-time grind because I did it. But that being said, I went full-time, and I really wanted to differentiate myself from the crowd. And, everybody described me as, oh, you're Tristan, you do videography, you do, and first I was like, no, I do cinematography. Then there's a whole bunch of talented cinematographers, right? Or DPs, directors of photography. And I was like, well, I'm not like everybody else. I'm myself. And I said, well, how can I kind of fuse who I am and what I do? And I said, digital storyteller. And not just a digital storyteller, but the digital storyteller. Because I really felt like there is power in labeling yourself and giving yourself a title that aligned with your core beliefs and your core values. And what I do is I take digital media and I create meaningful stories, I create meaningful messages, and I try and craft them in a way that will attract the target audience or the target viewership that people are looking for, whether it's my clients or myself. And then another big part of that is also I want to give back. And I give back by building the community, by building the creative community through Facebook groups, through my YouTube channel, and other methods, by facilitating and providing workshops. Because I really do believe that in the words of somebody before me, I won't mention his name, he said it like this. He said, when you get to a level of success, you have a responsibility to send the elevator back down. And what he was referring to was this idea of, you don't just run into the next level of success or into the room of success where everybody's successful and close the door behind you and lock it and don't let anybody else in. You have a responsibility now with your affluence, with your level of I should say influence, and your level of expertise and reach, to now find other people to mentor, to pour into, to build up, because you were freely given a lot of information. Maybe we pay for this, we go to school for different things, but the real life things that have allowed us to be successful and grow, that's somebody taking us aside and saying, hey, this is some things that you should look at. This is some of the trajectories that you want to look at in terms of being successful. And we have a responsibility to give those principles to somebody else and not just to hoard it ourselves.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming. This has been a wonderful interview.
You're so funny. You're so funny.
Wow, Tristan, man, I'm in awe every time we speak. So like, this is dope. I love what you said your friend said about the elevator. So once you reach the top, bring the elevator back down.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I've never heard that saying before, and that just hit me right when you said that. I was like, wow.
And check this out, right? It's not just, we think, okay, once I get to Oprah and Stedman's level, then I'll send the elevator down. No, you can be at level 3 and somebody can be at G.
Yeah.
Some people can be at parking, right? P1 or P2.
Exactly.
Maybe in downtown it's like P8, right? Because there's so many underground parking spots. You see what I'm saying? But wherever you are, you know what I mean? You still have a responsibility to send the elevator back down because you're facilitating the growth of your community. And when your community is healthy, you're healthy.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? If your community is not healthy, then you're not healthy. And that goes from, and I'm speaking from the standpoint of a creative community.
Yeah.
But, if you're LGBTQ, if you're Black, if you're Hispanic, if you're whatever community you're coming from, if your community is not healthy, you're not healthy. So how are you taking your level of, your platform and your level of influence to enrich and empower others in your community?
And the church said, amen, hey, hallelujah.
E flat, please. E flat. Yeah, right there.
Oh, man. No, that's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to get into the more of the business side of things in terms of your process. So and what you had to learn.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like the hard stuff, like
I had
some
to learn
lessons.
everything. I had to learn everything.
So in terms of, let's start with clients. In terms of clients, what are some hard lessons that you learned that you really wish you could maybe either done differently,
Yeah, for sure.
or just lessons maybe because everything's a process. We all have to go through it sometimes to realize what not to do and what to do. You know what I mean? And especially when it comes to trying to attract your target audience, your target client. Sorry.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So great questions. Great questions. Number one, in terms of clients, what I've learned is trust your gut. The red flag is the red flag is the red flag. You will have a series of red flags. When you have a series of red flags, know that that's your intuition, your gut, your inner person saying this is not the client for you. Walk away from the money. There's not a fat enough check that will satisfy the trouble that you will go through if you don't follow your instinct and follow your intuition in terms of those red flags. There's always clients that you have red flags with. For me, my clients that I always get red flags for are the clients that are always rushing, trying to rush the process, and I'm trying to slow them down. Oh, I just want to get a quote. I want to get this. I want to get that. It's happening. And I'm like trying to slow down conversation because I understand that they may have a chaotic system in place, but I slow it down so that we can actually go through what we need to go through so I can run my business effectively and understand how to meet their needs, right? So again, two totally different philosophies colliding together, that's a red flag. So that can be an identifier that says, okay, you know what, that's probably not my client. The other thing is this whole idea of, we have to say yes to every person that knocks on our door. You do not have to say yes to every single client. I remember my father told me when I started my business a long time ago, the side hustle, he said to me, Tristan, because he's Jamaican, Tristan, I just want to tell you something. Don't ever run after any client. Don't. Because if you have to run after a client, you have to run after your payment, you have to run after them, you have to, and it was funny, and I was laughing at the time.
Can you interpret that a little for
for sure,
ones that are
for
not?
For sure. My dad's Jamaican, so the interpretation was, Tristan, don't run after your clients, or don't beg for clients or beg for business, because if you have to do that to get them, you're going to have to do that to keep them. And it's going to be a perpetual cycle of just frustration. So he said, and essentially what he was saying was that stick to your pricing, stick to your core beliefs of how you want to run your business and how you want to value yourself, and then go with that, and the clients will come. And then the third thing in terms of clients, the biggest lesson I learned, and I'm learning this now, is that in order to attract the clients that you want, you have to reflect the clients that you want. You have to dress like them, you have to look like them, you have to kind of, position yourself. Because here's the thing, clients will buy from people they like.
Yes.
Okay? Clients will buy from people that they like, they identify with, and they feel comfortable with. who are the people that they identify with, like, and feel comfortable with? People that look like them, sound like them, act like them. Not to the whole point.
Okay.
Now I know it's
I was
controversial.
gonna say, like,
no.
how do you?
So how you distinguish that?
Yeah, because
so,
a person of color, like,
for sure.
just because you said dressing and all that, right?
Yeah.
So like, how do you?
So what I mean by that is, I mean, if you're in an urban environment and your clientele is, Bay Street, or bankers or whatever else, you dressing, in Sean John, Sean John jumper.
You went way back.
Yeah, of course. I don't know. I don't know.
I
have no idea. I don't dress that urban all the time. I wear Old Navy all the time.
1999.
Yeah. Hey,
Really?
Listen, I don't know. But let's just say, right?
Okay.
You have urban attire, and there's nothing wrong with urban attire. I love urban attire. I love chilling out and, like, having that swag. But that's not reflective of the environment bankers are in, right?
Okay.
So you have to reflect that, right? Okay. And that may not be
without changing who you are.
Yes, of course. What I'm saying is that we have to be mindful of what we're putting out there, because chances are what we're putting out there is what we're attracting. It's no different than a lot of times when you see a cyclical cycle with maybe a man or a woman, and they get into the same sort of relationships all the time. It's because they're attracting that. They're reflecting that out there.
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
So it's that sort of philosophy, right? So it starts with a mentality in the sense of understanding the approach or the thought process of your client. So what a lot of people do as an exercise is they'll create a made up client, right? They'll call him Jerry, or they'll call him Hakeem, or they'll call him whatever, right?
Yeah.
Sandy, right? And they'll say, okay, Sandy shops here. Sandy has 3 children. Sandy makes this much amount of money. She likes doing these things. And that becomes now your ideal client. And then based on that, then you shape your brand around that, right? And you shape your wording and your messaging around that, right? So for me, I understand who I am, right? I'm very comfortable in my own skin, right? I don't shop at Chanel. I don't, I don't, not yet, but I mean, I'm just saying there's certain things that I just don't do because it doesn't interest me, right? I don't necessarily go to the ballet. Nothing wrong with the ballet. I like going to sporting events, or I like going to different things, like maybe going to the art gallery and things of that nature. But what I'm trying to say, and the point I'm trying to make, is that before you think about the dollars, you have to think about the client. And you have to also think about the language that will attract that type of client, and also the branding that will attract that type of client. And a little bit of tweaking in terms of your brand, both your personal brand as well as your business brand, will make a world of a difference in terms of attracting the right type of client. But you have to be aware that people are people, and we all have our own internal biases, and we're inclined to be to connect with people and drawn to people that look like us, sound like us, or that have alike values.
Yeah.
So we have to really be mindful of that in terms of when we're doing our messaging, right? If we want high-end clients, but then we're using other types of language or terminology, or we're representing a certain type of brand, a style of brand, then we may not get those high-end clients because we're not actually reflecting what those high-end clients are looking for.
And you may not even be there yet.
Yeah.
Like you may have you have goals of wanting to attract a certain clientele.
Yeah.
But your work may not even reflect with that client, that type of high-end client.
Yeah.
Like you still have work to do yourself.
Well, one of my mentors, right, Milton Lawrence, he said it like this. He said, I remember when he was looking at my bridal brand, and he said to me, man, your work is dope, but the branding's off. The website's off, and you may want to work on a few things, right? Because again, if I'm asking people to invest in me, I have to make sure that I look invest worthy. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like imagine, like follow me on this, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine if you went into your bank, right, your local bank,
Okay,
and it looked kind of shady. Like everybody in there looked shady, right? Like they're doing something murky with the money.
Yeah.
Like they're taking your money, and then they're buying some other stuff with it and selling some stuff in the back, right? You would be like, that would kind of make you feel unsettled, right?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't reinforce that trust factor. And that's all I'm saying, is that you want to reflect the type of brand and the type of clients that you want to actually draw into your brand. And that may be controversial, and people may not like it. That's cool, but I'm just saying there's a reason why certain people get hired for certain jobs and other people don't. And a lot of it has to do with the way you look, the way you communicate, the way your brand is represented. And that's something that I'm still working through. That's something that I think we're all still working through.
Exactly. Okay, Thank you. That's perfect. So for the other part of the question I was asking, in terms of clients, What are kind of some hard lessons you've learned?
Yeah.
Or mistakes I'm not going to say mistakes, just lessons, because everything is, sometimes I feel like everything happens for a reason. So
I call it taking the L.
Taking the L, yeah.
Taking the L, lesson learned. So I think one of the greatest lessons I learned is the fact that, get it all on paper. Get it all on paper. I don't care if it's a piece of newspaper, if it's a piece of toilet paper, if it's a piece of, whatever, a leaf, okay, and written in blood.
Yeah.
Get it on paper, get it down, because there's a lot of things that can be said. Get it in email, preferably email or documentation, just because there are a lot of like warm and fuzzy moments at the beginning of a process, and by the end, if you don't, dot your I's and cross your T's, there are a lot of things that can go awry and a lot of messages that can be misunderstood in terms of the expectations of the clients and the expectations of the actual business and brand owner, right? So I always say to my clients, hey, no matter how small it is, no matter if it's a free project, hey, I just want to send over my agreement just so that we're clear on expectations, your expectations of me and my expectations of you. Because what that does is clarity allows you to be free and allows you to feel a level of confidence in the process, because now everybody's on the same page, and they can never come back and be like, oh, well, I never said that. Well, did you sign off on this? Well, you signed off on that. Okay, cool. So let's look from that vantage point. So that was a big thing for me when I was starting out. I was like, oh, you can put the deposit whenever, you can sign it. Oh, you didn't sign it. Okay, and I was very like trying to be nice with it.
Yeah.
But that was because I had another job I was working on, so I didn't really have to worry about when I got paid, because I was getting paid at my nice secure job.
Yeah.
When you're doing this, this is your 9 to 5. You're the way I describe it is, when you're working a 9 to 5, like a typical 9 to 5 job with a large corporation or whatever else, it's a lot easier in a sense because you're plugging into something that's larger than you. When you become an entrepreneur or self-employed, you're now saying, I want everybody to plug into me. Meaning you now are the entity that is creating that economy that helps to employ and give opportunities to other people, right? And that's a totally different mindset, right? It's totally different because as an employee, I'm focused on the scope of my role and my job and how it affects, the economy or the ecosystem of that corporation or company. When I'm in a entrepreneur now, I now am the HR department, the advertising department, our marketing department, accounting. I am the CFO, the COO. I am
the
everything.
Janitor. You're
the
everything.
janitor, right? Customer
everything.
service, customer care.
Yep.
It's a totally different, and it's not for everybody.
No.
And I tell people it's not for everybody. Like for instance, my wife, she loves the 9 to 5 thing. She cannot.
Some people love it and
yeah.
they thrive on it. They're just like, they go to work, they come home, and they're genuinely actually happy. And it's not, you know what I mean? So
I mean, again, so that's another lesson I had to learn was like, not everybody's going to understand that. They're not going to understand the flow of what it is to be an entrepreneur and the requirements that are there. Another lesson in terms of clients, and I'll close off with this in terms of this question, is just really take a moment before you respond to any sort of issues or any sort of escalations with clients. Bounce ideas off of other people that don't have an emotional investment into the transaction. What I mean by that is connect with people that have other perspectives that are not emotionally tied to your business, because they will help you to facilitate responses better. They will help you with handling issues better, and you won't respond in such an emotional way. Because the thing is, as an entrepreneur, it's great. You get the freedom, you do all this stuff, but it's also your baby. And you're very, very protective of it, and it's a very sensitive thing. And sometimes you're wrong. And sometimes you have to own your ish. You have to own all the crap, and it smells nasty and stinky and dirty. But sometimes you drop the ball, and you need somebody to hold you accountable and be like, nah, actually the client's right.
Yeah.
You dropped the ball. So that's something I had to learn quite a few times, but it's all good. Like you learn and you become stronger for it, and your next blessing it will come after that, because now you're owning your baggage.
I love that. Huge lessons to be learned, definitely. So In terms of, again, contracts,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with collaborations.
Yes.
So contracts, I'm assuming, are definitely, again, a must for collaborations.
Yes.
So how do you note what collaborations you choose to go forward with? And how do you deal with when they've broken set agreements in the contract?
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. You deal with any sort of breach of contract with dignity, respect, and the way that you would want to be handled if you breached something, right?
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, I don't know, you delivered, you didn't deliver on time. You wouldn't want somebody to come to you and be like, "Yo, what you talking about, man? Why you didn't deliver on time?" and cuss you off, right?
Yeah.
You would want somebody to talk to you as a person, as a human being, and have a conversation. And the reality is 90% of the time, it will de-escalate the issue, and you'll realize that you'll have more in common than more not in common in terms of your end goal for the project or for the service or the product that you're trying to work together to create or do, right?
Okay.
So what I would say is the first thing first is you want to make sure that your approach is right. Secondly, you want to always refer back to the agreement and not to emotion. Always.
Okay.
It's not about necessarily, because again, it's business. It's not necessarily anything more than that at that point. You want to make sure that, hey, could we have a conversation? Do you mind if we have a conversation? And maybe it's in person, maybe it's over the phone. Definitely not over email. Email does not work because tones are always misunderstood.
Yes, 100%.
So definitely on the phone.
Why are you laughing? Interesting.
Sharon squeaking.
Oh, sorry, guys.
Yeah.
My foot's squeaking the chair, and he's... Sorry, focus. Okay, keep going.
So yeah, over the phone, in person, and then really referring back to these things and why you have said clauses in there and how they breached it, and how, and then really allowing the kind of putting the ball in their court and asking them, okay, so how are we gonna resolve this? What's the resolution for this? How can we make this right? Because at the end of the day, you want to keep an ally or keep a good working relationship. Even if you don't like the person, you can still like working with them, and you can still create great stuff, right? There's people that right now, today, I don't like, but I create great stuff with them. And if they came to me today to collab, yeah, I would collab with them. I would definitely think about it because I'm like, we make great stuff together. So it's really.
But how do you kind of like, how do you do the both? Because if you don't like them, but then you still like working with them and you both create, like, how can you create something still so great, but then you don't like them?
Well, how does a lawyer defend a defendant that they don't
that's
really
a good
like?
example.
Right?
Yeah, that's true.
How does a manager work with employees that don't listen to them in a normal environment, right? So there's a lot of different examples where we home in on the skill of being professional.
Yes.
And then taper down our own emotion, right?
So feelings aside, it's straight
exactly.
business.
Especially if it's like, it's different if we're just doing, hey, can you do a free thing with me? Nah, I don't really want to do a free thing with you. That's different than hey, I have this $10,000 job or $20,000 job. I think you're the best person to help me facilitate this vision. How do you feel about it? Those are two totally different conversations, right?
Okay.
Because again, one is business, and listen, for $50,000, $60,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever. I can make that work. I can put aside my emotion.
That's true.
You see what I'm saying? To make things work and create dope stuff, right? So
100%.
Again, it's a level of maturity, and it's understanding the macro picture instead of the micro. The micro is, you wronged me. I don't like you. I don't like your hair. I don't like the way you talk to me. The macro is, we create some dope stuff, and there's a couple other brands that want to do work with us, or we want to do work with.
Thank you. Yeah. I just did that on purpose. I just wanted to ask because I knew you'd go more in depth because you know what I mean. I have to. It's my job,
I'm talking too much, but it's okay.
So, in terms of even, how do you weed out those? I'm going to use quotes, guys. Those collaborations. I'm using collaborations in quotes because how do you weed out those people that you kind of, like you said before, follow your gut, see those red flags, people that are just in it just to get free stuff. Yeah. So in a sense, like they may be offering something to you as well, but you kind of just have a feeling, like you kind of know their intentions.
Okay. So if you know their intentions,
you have a feeling. Sorry about that. Their intentions.
Well, my whole thing is there's two things, right? Like number one, there's the gut check, and then number two, there's just simple things like if you're like, I don't mind doing maybe one free collab with a person, like one time.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I don't mind that, but it has to still be beneficial to my brand. That's the one caveat. So it's free in the sense of I'm not getting monetary value, but I'm getting social proofing or social currency, whether it's on social media, whether it's business currency. You know what I mean? Like there's different ways that can, maybe it's leveraging my brand, whatever else. It's not just a shout out. Oh, shout out to Tristan. He did a dope job on my video. No. It's like full branding and the ability to use that footage and that material for my own use as well, right? It's not just a one-way thing, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of people saying to me, oh, hey, could you, maybe they have a bigger following than I do on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or whatever else, or they're, maybe they're TV personalities to a certain extent, maybe YouTube personalities, and they'll reach out to me and then they'll be like, oh, can you do a video for me, a video intro or whatever else? I'm like, sure, this is how much it would be. They're like, oh, well, I was just thinking of a collab. Well, okay, in a collaboration, that indicates that I'm giving you value and you're giving me value back. So explain to me, other than you having 6,000 followers that won't, or 10,000 followers or 20,000 followers that you can't guarantee will follow me back, how is this benefiting me? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's no different than the bride when I started weddings, the bride that would come to me or the couple that would come to me and be like, oh, well, we have other friends that are engaged and once they see your stuff, then they'll probably book with you. Well, how about this? I'll give you the discount after they book 3 of your friends book me.
Exactly.
And then once they book me,
Yeah.
then hey, listen, I'll give you $200 off of each head. You know what I mean? Off of each person that books with me.
Yeah.
But you can't guarantee that I'm going to get the extra business.
Exactly. You can't speak for people.
Yeah, so I can't guarantee that I can give you the discount or the free services. Now, it's different if you're doing a creative collaboration where it's like a styled shoot. Because again, a styled shoot is something that you're doing. It's essentially like marketing, right? So it's like instead of me paying $1,500 for to be advertised in a publication like a bridal magazine or a mainstream magazine or whatever else, I'm going to now use my skills, $1,500 worth of my skills or more, to create something dope, a creative project, or collaborate with other people that with this in terms of creating a great project. And then that now is going to be my leverage to be able to market myself. And I've made a lot of great connections through that strategy, as well as being able to showcase my work in places that I would never be able to showcase my work. In this economy now, you don't have to only do collaborations. You can do a lot of different things to be able to leverage your positioning in social media or in a global economy like this. So.
And it helps prepare you for other big things. Because I know you and I personally, we've talked about working with brands and what to do, what steps you can take to work to get those brands' attention. Wow, the struggle is real today. What steps you can take to attract those brands? So can you kind of share what you and I discussed before and what a creative, whether you're a videographer, a photographer, a painter, even anything someone in that creative realm can do to attract a brand? Yeah,
so I know that we were talking about this, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying before in terms of like you have to kind of reflect your target client.
Yes.
So in that package, it's not just about the way you look, the way you dress, what you eat, and blah blah blah. Those will help, but what really helps is creating dope work, right? So if I want to be in Essence. I just did an engagement shoot this past weekend, and it was like my second engagement shoot ever. But loved it. I was very excited, and
this is photography. Let's be specific.
Yeah, photography. Yeah. So I'm getting into photography, y'all. It's really great.
And just side note, sorry to cut you off. I'm sorry, my friend.
Yeah.
He says he's getting into, but if you see the photos that he took for someone that's just getting into, listen, he's so humble. It's kind of sour taste in my mouth. It's kind of annoying. So I just have to put it out there that like his starting out is not the same level.
Yes,
that's like Oprah saying, I'm just starting out.
Yeah, I'm starting out with directing.
It's pretty much, that's a perfect example.
So essentially, I mean, I'm not really starting from the bottom with regards to photography because cinematography is an extension of photography. So a lot of the same principles I just bring into my stills, and I create that same sort of experience. But shot this engagement shoot on the weekend. It was great. And I was looking at it and I was saying to myself, this client or these clients reflect or look like the clients that you see on Ebony or on Essence, right? The couples that you see there, right? And it goes back to what we're saying is like you have to create the economy or the environment that you want. So if you're trying to attract, for instance, the brand that we worked with, can I name the brand that we worked with last year? So Ollie Quinn.
I'll big up Ollie Quinn.
Yeah, Ollie Quinn. Boop, boop, boop. I got my glasses right here. I just took them off for a minute. I don't actually wear glasses, but that's not the point.
Aesthetics, guys.
Yeah, aesthetics. Ollie Quinn, the way that transpired was that you created dope work. And that dope work resonated with them and resonated with their target audience and the type of people, type of clients that they kind of want to attract, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Therefore, you were the perfect candidate to now elevate their brand by creating an amazing piece of art, shooting images and stills and getting the models together and doing a creative shoot, which I was a part of it and I got the benefit of it, right?
You did the video, which was amazing.
But here's the thing, right? If you didn't create that dope artwork right before, and you didn't create a great resume on your Instagram, right, that showed them who you are and what you could do, then you would have never had that opportunity. You see what I'm saying? So you have to, and not only that, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. Now, because of you, I have a great relationship with a brand that I never had a relationship with. So that's why it's so important to create this sort of economy and this environment that allows you to stay creative, stay inspired, create dope work that is also reflective of the brands that you want to attract. So in a very practical way, if you want to attract Nike, look at what Nike is doing, right? Don't do exactly that, elevate it and do things. Create a shoot, maybe a styled shoot, maybe it's a short film where they're wearing Nike pieces or whatever else. Create that, and then start shopping it and sharing it and try and make it go viral, or maybe do a behind the scenes of how you shot it, and then submit that to a whole bunch of different blogs and vloggers, and then allow that to now circulate. So then when you're going to a brand like Nike, you're going with a level of synergy and a level of influence, so that they're not just looking at you as just like a cool creative, but you're actually creating a market for yourself and an economy for yourself. And then they look at you like, okay, cool, I want to work with them because they're creating content without us even thinking about it that speaks to our target audience, and it resonates with our brand.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's so important to know, because it's something you're always thinking, like, how can I attract a brand? Like, what? Sometimes you just got to do it. You just got to ask.
It's different.
Like, all they can do is yes, say no,
but
come to them with something as well. Like, even for the Ollie Quinn example, yes, I had like you said, my Instagram laid out. I had my website, but I didn't necessarily have any brand mock-up shoots available, but they still like the aesthetic of my work, so they were willing to take a chance, and and it worked out well, and we did a really good job. But I think it's important to, like, a lot of points that you touched on, just do with the creative, reach out to who you want to, and again, elevate what they're already doing. Don't copy it because you want to show them why should I hire you, why do you stand out. So I loved everything you said.
And there's no reason why now in this social media rich environment that you can't get your work out there.
Oh, yes.
Like, think about, back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it was super difficult to break into the commercial market, into brands or whatever else. I have people that I've worked with, I've shot weddings with, and that have shot stuff for Nike and shot stuff for Chevrolet and done different things. This is a totally different sort of environment, and totally different digital world that we live in, where a person that, I grew up in Malton. Big up Malton, right?
I can't with you. You and O'Shea.
I can go big up to O'Shea too. Howard, check out his podcast.
Rodriguez, just saying. Sorry.
So, but for real, like, you can come from remote, weird places in Toronto or whatever else and be doing dope stuff. Like, just a couple months ago, I got flown to South Africa.
I love how you just kind of eased right, because that was my next question. So I love how you just slid that right in there. So let's talk about South Africa.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just that whole idea of, like, me, like Tristan from Toronto. I just grew up, like, I grew up in Jane and Wilson half my life, and then Malton half my life. Both of them are not really the greatest, economic forces in Toronto or in the GTA. Yeah. They're just kind of like different urban areas, right, with a lot of minorities. But the reality is that it doesn't matter where you are or where you grew up. this environment and this world, this digital world, has so much opportunities, but are you hungry enough to find those opportunities?
Yes.
Yeah. So with that, talking about South Africa now, that's the whole reason why I went to South Africa, is because of the fact that I saw an opening of opportunity in the sense of connecting with a bridal brand, a high-end bridal publication, and based off of just my vibe alone, and then them seeing my work, they were sold on hiring me, as well as one of my colleagues, to capture their events in South Africa. Little did I know, and I'll tell you more about that story. Do you mind if I tell you that a little bit about the story? So
this is, of course.
So a year prior to going to South Africa, they had a retreat in New Orleans. I was fortunate enough to win a scholarship to go. So they paid half. The bridal magazine, which is Munaluchi Bride, amazing people. Big up to Jackie and Chike. They're the owners and operators of it, and the whole team. They're really cool. They were so inspired by my submission. They said, "Okay, we're gonna pay half for you, and we want you to come to New Orleans." I was like, "Okay, cool. Go to New Orleans." The first day I got there, I didn't know anybody. I literally didn't know anybody. It was like a big bridal retreat. Everybody seemed like they knew everybody, and I felt like I'm totally out of my element. I'm like a fish out of water. I shouldn't have come. I felt so down on myself, and I remember saying to myself, I said, "No, Tristan, you made an investment in yourself, and this is not just about being chummy with people. It's about extending your brand, extending your business, and making good connections, really good connections." And I know, if nothing else, if I couldn't shoot again, if my arms were too stubs and I didn't have hands anymore or no feet, I could connect with people, and I know how to connect and relate to people. And that's what I started to do. And I did that, and I made such a great impression with them that they wanted to work with me in the future. And I didn't know what that entailed. Fast forward maybe a month or two later, they reached out to me and like, "Hey, so we're going to South Africa, and we were wondering if you would be open to being our lead cinematographer for the whole event." And I was like,
dope. Like,
are you guys serious right now? Are you guys serious? But again, had I not taken the leap of faith and really pushed myself out of my comfort zone and created, not only did I create the economy that I wanted, but then I also created connections I wanted, right? And then after that, after I made those impressions, then they looked at my work. So a lot of times artists get messed up with this. They think, "Oh, I'm going to do dope work. I'm just going to close my eyes, do dope work. That's all I need to do. I don't need to think about anything else, because people will see my work, they'll realize I'm dope, and they'll hire me." No, they won't. If you don't remember anything else I say, remember this. People buy from people they like.
Personalities,
That's
everything.
it. Personality is everything. And it sucks, and it's hard, and a lot of artists are introverts. But if you want to be an artist that is living off your art, you're going to have to learn the art of connecting with people and relating to people.
High five.
Wait,
no, harder. They need to hear it.
Oh.
Touch me, brother.
It felt
There
like
we go.
the end of the national anthem. Canada, hey, freeze frame.
We did like five.
Yeah, I know. It's
like
all
high
good.
fives.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to edit that, but
It's okay.
But
No,
you know
we're
what I mean?
editing that.
But the whole idea of connection, we're in a relationship-driven society. The reason why social media is popular, the reason why people are on Facebook all the time, Instagram, Twitter, whatever else, is because they want to relate to each other and connect to each other.
Yeah.
And we have the greatest gift as artists, because we can create things that bring people together.
Yes.
And that speak to brands and speak to people's stories. But we have to be willing to share ourselves in order to get some of those opportunities that we're looking to get.
Thank you so much. This is giving me all the juice. We can't take us nowhere. So I love this topic of brands, and we're almost finished on that, but I want to touch on it one more time, branch off what we were talking about a little bit earlier, which is licensing.
Yes, licensing.
And you know what? It's not talked about enough. A
Yeah.
lot of people, a lot of creatives don't know about licensing.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, like, I only recently learned about it thanks to you last year.
Yep.
But prior, I didn't really understand, because I'm like, I had heard the term, but because I'm not a big brand, I never who am I to charge anyone licensing for anything? So can you kind of break down licensing in just for people like us, like
yeah,
creatives?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Local creatives, personal brands, things of that nature.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say, even before we get into that sort of thing, is I have a principle in terms of business.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how much money you make. You set your standards, and your standards are your standards. So, for instance, in Canada, we have a tax called HST, the harmonized sales tax, whatever, right? If you're not making over $30,000 to $35,000, you don't have to collect that for the government, right? You don't have to charge that. You have to collect that, whatever else. From day one, when I registered my business, I collected HST, even if I was making $10,000 a year. The reason being was because I wanted to train my clients that I was a business and that I was not hey, if I give you a cash transaction, hey, can you take off the taxes? No, I was a business. So if you went into a convenience store and you bought something for $1, it's $1.13 because you're paying harmonized tax. If you went to the Bay or you went to Eaton Center or wherever else you went to store, you're paying that tax. Therefore, I am a business. I'm going to run myself as such. And so I always had that mindset, right? So when it comes to licensing, it was something that I always kind of had. I wasn't always the greatest at it, and I'm still not the greatest at it, but I understand the ideology behind it, right? And the whole idea behind it, or the ideology behind it, is that if we're having a transaction, right, and Jody Ann, you come to me and say, Tristan, can you make me a dope brand video? I'm like, yes, I can make you a dope brand video. The conversation that we have in terms of negotiating prices will depend on where you are going to be publishing that work, right? So if you wanted me to make a video for you for your website,
yes,
then your website is different than a television ad, right?
Yes.
It's different than a trailer that's coming before a movie, right?
Yeah.
It's different than digital online, or maybe printing out a still, right?
Okay.
All of those are different platforms, or different channels, if you want to say, of being able to make money or market people's art or people's work.
Okay.
So if you want to really take it from a very basic level, if I buy a DVD from Best Buy, right? Let's say, I don't know, The Dark Knight or something, or Batman. That's like 1998 or something. I don't know. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I bought the Color Purple, right?
Yeah.
The 30th edition of the Color Purple.
Yeah.
I love it. Sorry,
extra.
I'm thinking of Oprah.
I know.
I'll kill him there. Harpo, anyways.
I can't.
But
you can't take us
you
nowhere.
buy a DVD. I buy The Color Purple.
Yeah.
Do I own the rights to the movie of The Color Purple?
No.
Do I own the rights to the footage of The Color Purple?
No.
Do I own the rights to make copies and distribute it and make money off of that copy that I have?
You go to, never mind, but no.
If you go to certain places. But
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make is the agreement that we have with the studios, the director, the artist, is that we created something amazing. We are licensing a copy to you, and you're paying $20 for that copy to be able to watch it whenever you want in the comfort of your own home. You're not allowed to now make money off of what I worked on and what I created. Okay? If you want to do that, there's a channel for that. Okay. There's publication rights and all that other stuff,
Okay.
right? So from an individual's perspective, if a photographer takes a photo, brand photos for
products.
or product photos, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Where are you going to now distribute this? Is this going into a magazine? Is this going on your website? Is this going on a TV ad? Is this going now on a whole bunch of Facebook ads? Where is it going? Because depending on where it goes, that's going to determine the value by which I'm going to have to charge you, based on the fact that once I give you these images, once I give you this product, I may never see you again, right?
Yeah.
So I still have to get value for the work that I put in, right? For the work I put in, and for the value of this picture. The value of the picture is not the time that I spent on it. The value of the picture is the potential revenue that you can get from it. So it's like we were saying before, you shoot a product, right? Let's say you shoot a pair of jeans, right? For Old Navy, right?
Yes.
And they're super popular and people are using it.
Yeah.
Is the value of that picture just $10 because you charge them $10? Or is the value all the business that they've acquired based on the dope photo that you took? Right?
Exactly, yeah.
So that's the philosophy behind licensing. Licensing is not about how long it takes and how many hours and how many technicians. It's about how valuable is this to you, and how many streams are you trying to push it in, and essentially I'm getting cut off from those streams because it's going directly back to you, right?
Okay.
So what I have to do is to protect myself and protect my work, I have to now charge you for the right to now use it on those different platforms. And once you have the right, then that's cool. Like if we already said, okay, you have all the digital publishing rights, so you can do it on any social media platform, whatever else. I just better not see it in print.
Is there a time for that though? Like you have, I'm licensing this to you for a year, or there's like, no, I want it to use forever. So you work out a number.
For sure.
There's no scale. Like there's
for sure. It's not there's not hard and fast rules.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to be reflective. Your publication agreement, or your licensing agreement has to be reflective of the clients that you're dealing with.
So it's client based,
right? Yeah. If I'm dealing with Nike, it's a different. I'm charging Nike different than I'm charging, Papa Joey's Pizza on the side street, right?
Okay.
It's because it's a different clientele, right? And there's different needs, right? Okay. But at the end of the day, the principle is the same, right?
Okay.
It's really going back to the principle. The principle is that no, you don't own this, right? You don't own the photos. I took photos of you. It's no different than if a photographer shoots your wedding. If I shoot your wedding, you don't have the rights to your photos, to the photos I shot of you. You are paying for the rights for me to produce the photos for you, and I'm giving you a copy of them. I'm not giving you the raws because that's not your creative content.
Yeah.
I used my camera. I shot the photos on my card. Therefore, it's my creative content. Mm-hmm. So I have the rights to it. If you want to purchase the rights from me, then there's going to be a price for that because there's value now that I'm going to be losing because you're not going to come back to me.
And you also, as a photographer in the contract, you state that you're releasing the right for them to print them because they'll want to make prints.
Of course. But not to resell them.
But not to resell them.
Exactly,
no.
Not to resell them, not to put them on iStock or something like that, where they can make more money off of it. Or to submit it into a contest and then they win. You know what I mean? Like there's like photo contests and stuff like that, right? I'm just using that as an extreme example.
No, the reason why I was clarifying that is because it's interesting because people don't know, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in situations where maybe big companies know, of course, not maybe everyday average person won't know.
Yeah.
Even me as a photographer, like I said, I didn't know. And when I went to Costco, I went to print my own work.
Yeah.
I went to print one of my own photos, and it was like it was editorial that I did.
Yeah.
And she said, so I put it online, and they had printed them, and they were not going to release the photos for me that they printed. And I said, there's something wrong. She's like, I just wanted to speak to you. It came up as a flag because these photos have been professionally taken.
Yep.
And I was like, and it had never happened.
Dope.
I was like, what? And she goes, do you have rights to print these photos? And I said, they're mine. I'm a photographer. And she said, oh, okay, you need to fill out our form just so we know, it's yours. Because a lot of times people try to print things offline, and sometimes you can still get good quality, but we don't want to be sued because you're printing other people's work.
Of course.
And I also have to show her proof that it was mine because anyone can say that.
Of course.
I showed her my business card, my website, and showed her on my Instagram and my website the photos that were there. And she goes, okay, we believe it's yours because your name and everything's there. So that was the first time it actually, even before we had talked, that it really hit me that like, wow, like even especially with photography, you do need to have rights to print things and, there's
a quick interview I watched last week with Jermaine Dupri on The Breakfast Club.
Okay.
You guys need to check it out, especially if you guys are young producers, music producers. And he said that, again, because this digital age, everybody wants to get in front of everybody and get their beats heard and get their art out there.
Yes.
They're not understanding the business side of things. So he gave this example. He said there's a young cat in Alabama that created the beat for the song, I think, I'm in love with the cocoa, whatever, right? Yeah, that song, right? That guy, the artist bought it for $200 on like some website. Yeah, that song. That person that produced that beat has no rights, no licensing rights, no publishing rights, gets no percentage of how many times that song gets played.
Wow.
So imagine you shooting a video, right? Or taking a photo, and then you just put it up on iStock or just free, you can use it, or pay $5 and you can use this for whatever. And then somebody uses it and puts it on a billboard, and now it's a Calvin Klein, successful Calvin Klein campaign, or it's a McDonald's, used in McDonald's stores around the country, right? that's why it's important to protect your work. I have friends of mine or people that I know that do stock footage and submit it or whatever else, and they have a certain process, but they'll get rights. They'll get paid, and not only that, the people that they've filmed inside the videos will get actual like credits, like acting credits in it, because they were shown in the commercials and things of that nature, and paid royalties. That's how important it is. This is important, and even if it's 10 cents, even if you're charging somebody a publishing rights for $1, it's the principle. It's not necessarily the profit in the beginning. It's the principle. It's people knowing what to expect when they approach you, and it's all about educating your client.
I was going to say, so how do you educate your local brand? So someone that's selling natural oils, just I'm using oils, for example, oils and
what's wrong with natural oils?
Like rose, whatever, tea tree, whatever you want to call it, right?
Tea tree,
and they need product shots. So I do a product shot for them. Now, how do and I add on the licensing because they're obviously going to be selling. I'm taking photos for them to sell on their website, and of course they're going to have it on Instagram, whatever, because they're trying to promote their product to sell. So how do I explain to that local business that this licensing fee is to give you rights to be able to distribute for forever, for a year, because they're a local business, just to say it's forever. Don't even put a time, like a year.
It's very simple. You have to have the conversation. It's just and the conversation can't be something that's like after you talked about the project, after you talked about pricing, and then like you did the project or you're about to do the project. It has to be right in the very beginning when you're talking about ideas, talking about your philosophy and your approach. You want to give people the information so that they can make an informed decision. You don't want to hide things. You don't want to kind of slide it in there. You want to have a clear understanding, so that they're educated about it. And a lot of them may not be educated about it, and that's okay. But you know, some people say no, some people say yes. That's super cool. Yeah. But you need to know what your values are and what your brand and your business stands for, and you have to have strong convictions, because again, at the end of the day, this is your business, right? This is not their business, right? They have their business, you have your business, right? And you have a responsibility to educate people on your business and how you do business, right? Because they're not going to know. Right, every business is different. The only reason why we know McDonald's, serves fast food and does certain things and has an app is because they've taught us that through advertising, through building relationships with us. But we think sometimes as entrepreneurs that people should just get it, and they don't. A lot of people just don't get it because they don't have to. They go to a job, they plug into something, right? We are now the outlet. We have become the outlet, and people are plugging into us. So we have to now educate people on our process.
Amen. Thank you. Yeah. What's your why, and how important is that for you? And why is that so important? Sorry.
Yeah. My why is, it's twofold. So the first part of my why was I've always felt like I've had something I have to give to the world. I couldn't ever really describe it, but I've always felt like I've had an appointment to give something to this world and to enrich and inspire people in whatever I do. I just always felt that, and I've always felt a sense of urgency that if I wasn't totally committed to my purpose, which is really inspiring people through the arts and really allowing people to feel connected to each other, and allowing people to see different perspectives by using the arts, then I really felt like I wasn't doing justice to this world. I was doing a disservice to myself and to others. So my why for me was always like, I have this sort of like appointment, and I have to make sure that I'm 100% authentic and getting to that place where I can be of service to others. But then flip the script now, get married, have kids. That's kind of been amended to the point where it's like, I want to leave a legacy. I want to leave a legacy of financial freedom for my kids, and also allow them to understand that they don't have to just accept status quo, but they have the ability to create whatever they want. And when I say they want, whatever they can see in their head, they have the ability to create in this world, in this physical world. So my why right now for me is like, I still have that urgency and that sense of like service to my community and to my fellow people and fellow humans in the world. But also it's that legacy piece of, I want to be able to give. And it's not just about my immediate family. It's not just about my kids. Like, I really want to take care of my parents. Like, my parents are getting older. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. I want to make sure that all my brothers and sisters, like, they have houses and they're taken care of. Like, I have this sort of like this communal sort of idea of or responsibility that if I'm not totally committed to what I was designed to do and what my purpose is, then that's going to affect all the channels around me. And I really want everybody to be strong and everybody to be uplifted and everybody to win. I had this saying for this year, 2018, I want everybody to win. And somebody said to me, well, not everybody can win. I said, yeah, not everybody's going to win, but I'm not going to be the reason why they're not going to win. So I'm going to be the reason. I want to be the reason why people are winning. But if they're losing or if they're not doing the things that they need to do to win, I'm not going to be a part of the reason why that's happening to them. So I just always had that mentality. I've always been that way.
Yeah.
My why is a global why, but then it's also a personal why. It's like I got to get to this place where I'm always serving people and serving people through my gifts. And then greater is just like the greater purpose too is just my family and really creating a future for them where they don't have to necessarily feel like there's any limitations, and that's not just from a financial standpoint, but that's also emotional, relational, mental place as well. So that's kind of my why. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It makes sense because it's your why.
I know.
As long as it makes sense to you.
Yeah.
And it does make sense. I understand completely.
Yeah.
Having a personal and then, of course, your other why, they both are intertwined.
They're intertwined because it's like I've always been an extrovert, right? So it's not, I've never, my greatest prayer and thought for my kids has always been, I want them not to be the smartest, not to be the fastest, not to be, the richest, but I want them to be the most self-aware. Because I believe that being self-aware is something that is very hard to teach. You have to learn that from a very young age because what self-awareness allows you to do is allows you to understand that your actions affects the other person and other people around you. So it'll now affect the way that you process things, the choices that you make, because now you're not just living in a bubble and living with tunnel vision about what you want to do and who you want to connect with and whatever else. You have a greater aspiration and a greater goal than just your own personal thoughts. Yeah.
Thank you. So why is knowing your why so important?
Knowing your why is so important because it becomes the driving force that propels you, right, through difficult moments. So, again, when I lost that opportunity to have that great job that, and I'll tell you, I mean, I was getting paid like $52,000 a year. I thought that was the most amount of money I would ever make in my life. I was like, I was getting a pension and I was benefits and all that stuff. But I wasn't happy because it wasn't fulfilling my why, right? And when you actually are fulfilling your why and figure out what your why is, that will govern, that's like the true north of your life. So that will govern the direction that you go in life, okay? And for those of you that don't know anything about compasses or about navigation, true north is no matter where you are in the world, where you are in life, and physically in this world, true north is always true north. It's always pointed up in that direction, right? That's what your why is. Your why allows you to be recalibrated to what the true north of who you are is supposed to be. And then that way, when you're heading in a crazy direction, maybe you got into a relationship and then somebody's taking you somewhere else, or, you get connected with a certain business and it's taking you somewhere else, you go back to your why and you recalibrate yourself and say, no, that's not really what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be doing this. I was just having that conversation with some creatives last night that have done a lot of things in their life.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, but I really feel like this is who I am. This is my purpose. This is my why. And they're realizing that, and they're figuring out that their true north is pointing them this way. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just talking.
Well, thank you very much. So how important is mentorship?
Oh, my God. Mentorship is everything. I think if you don't have a mentor, you really don't have, I don't think you'll have great direction.
Interesting. Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because you don't know everything. You think you know everything. You don't know everything.
That's true.
And the reality is that, and this is the way I look at mentors, okay? Twofold. They've gone through certain things that you have not gone through. Therefore, they have a different or a more mature perspective on issues or challenges or ideas that you're trying to really understand, right?
Okay.
That's one thing. But the other thing is a mentor gives a different perspective. When I mean that, so physically right now, we're looking at each other, right? Eye to eye, right? If I move to the left or I move to the right, I'm getting a different perspective on Jody Ann. It may be a millimeter, maybe a mile.
Okay.
But the reality is that the perspective of how I see you changes depending on how I physically move myself, right? And that's the same thing with mentorship. Mentorship allows somebody that's external from you to see the world or show you the world in a different perspective or a different light. And that is really empowering because, again, you can only see what you see, right? And how you see it based upon your own skills, talents, abilities, and experiences. Your experiences carve out or shape the way that you see the world, whether you like it or not. You can read as much books as you want. The experiences that you have from a child going up all the way to an adult shape the way that you see the world. So if somebody rolls their eyes, you automatically may think that's a negative thing. Some people may think it's a positive thing. That's based on your experiences.
Yeah.
So when you have a mentor, what a mentor does is they allow you to see the world in a different perspective. And they also help you home in on skills and things of that nature. But it's really about giving you a different perspective because so the more mentors you have in different areas of your life, the more perspectives you have and the greater reach and the greater understanding you have. So, for instance, there was this gentleman by the name of Peter Daniels. He's a billionaire. He only goes to places to speak once, and he never goes back. And I was fortunate enough to see him speak at a local church I was a part of. And he said that he has several mentors. And he said he basically asks people to mentor him, or throughout in his past, he asked people to mentor him for specific things.
Yeah.
So maybe they're really good in finance, but they're not really good in marriage. They're on their 4th, 5th marriage. I didn't go to him or her for marriage advice. I went to him or her for business advice or finance advice. You know what I mean? And then maybe another person is really good in relationships, but not really good in, I don't know, in sales. Okay, I'm not going to you for sales. I'm going to you for relationships and connections. Okay. And so he understood the way that you can decipher and distinguish between which mentor is good for you for what things, right? So there are people that I look to for business things, mentors. There are spiritual mentors I have. There are relational mentors that I have, right? So a mentor doesn't have to be this sort of, I don't know, this, I don't want, but you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be this mystical character that comes in dust or clouds or whatever. It's just a real person with a real perspective that can empower your perspective on life. So, demystify it and make sure that you have one, because if you don't have one, I really do believe that there's a lot of people that are kind of running around with no direction because they haven't allowed themselves to be humble enough or allowed themselves to be vulnerable enough or open enough for somebody to tell them the truth and give them a truthful perspective. And that's what mentorship is.
Well, you've heard it, folks. There it is. Mentorship defined by Tristan Barrocks.
Boop, boop, boop.
So I want to know, what has been your lowest point in this creative journey, and how did you learn from that how did you learn from being that low and kind of rising back up from the ashes like a phoenix, let's just say, But seriously, how did you get out of that low point and just continue on and learn from it? Because, sometimes we have to completely break down to learn a lesson, and then you learn it and you're going to, and to grow from it.
Yeah, I think, in terms of my lowest point was literally when I lost the opportunity at that job. The contracts subsided and they didn't hire me back. I didn't have a lot of savings. I just purchased, a month earlier, purchased a home. My wife didn't end up going back to her job because she was on She was on mat leave, and because we were so confident I was going to get this job, she didn't go back to her other job. So she didn't have a job. 2 young kids, just purchased a house, just also purchased a car, didn't have a lot of savings, and wasn't confident in my ability to actually do this for real. And I remember sitting down and being like, yo, God, like, this is messed up, man. Like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? And 2 things happened. Number one, another thing that was crazy happened. Like, so all my life, I've pretty much worked like 1 to 2 jobs, you know, and I've never had to, thank God, rely on unemployment. I applied for unemployment. This was after I said, okay, I was going to go full-time in my business. Fill out the form. They say I have to call in. I call them. They ask me a series of questions. And the lady, after the series of questions, after asking the series of questions, the lady says to me, unfortunately, you're not eligible for unemployment. And I said, how is that possible? I've been paying for this like 15 to 20 years of my life, all my life. Well, you said that you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to do it full time. Therefore, you're not available to work a 40-hour day, you know, 9 to 5. That means you're not going to be looking for a job. Therefore, that disqualifies you from getting funding for unemployment. If you want to get funding, you have to go through like the entrepreneurial business route of they have another department. But I just had started doing that, so I wasn't going to be qualified for that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a job. I wasn't getting unemployment. New house, 2 babies at home. Wife didn't have a job. And it was like the middle of January, right after Christmas, so nobody had no money, right? Everybody got bills to pay.
Yeah.
Credit card bills are coming in. And I was just like, God, like I'm a very special guy, so I just had to say, like, God, if you don't make this happen, I don't know what we're going to do. You know, we're going to lose this house, probably going to lose the car, probably going to have to, you know, file for something. And that week, I booked a styled shoot with somebody. It was a free thing, just to stay creative. Actually, with one of my, you know, one of the people I look up to, Samantha Clark. I had a great conversation with her. She's a dope photographer from Toronto and is international now. And she actually invited me to a style shoot. Went to the style shoot. Ended up getting like a $30 ticket, which I didn't have money for. But that style shoot ended up being published, which then connected me to like Muna Lucci Brad, which connected me to other people, and I had other opportunities, and it was just kind of snowballed from there. But I say all that to say that like you cannot, when you get to the lowest point, you cannot give up, because that's literally the breaking of the next day, the next opportunity in your life. And the reality is that there are 4 seasons in actual life, right? Not like, we're not talking about our lives, but I'm talking about like, you know, there's 4 seasons, right?
Yeah.
There's winter, spring, summer, fall, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand and identify when the winter season of your life is. And there's nothing wrong with winter. Winter kills germs. It kills decrepit things. It allows things to be dormant for a bit, to have rest, to be able to kind of reset themselves, right?
Things to be born again.
To be born again, right? So then spring and summer can be times of great joy and great effervescence and excitement and energy, right? And then obviously fall is a time to reap, harvest all the work that you've planted and all the things that you've done. So there's a purpose for every season, right? So that season was my winter, you know, and it was hard for me to deal with that, because I didn't know. I've never experienced that in my life. And I felt, as a man, as a husband, as a person that of faith, I just felt like, how do I do this? I don't know. I don't feel, this doesn't feel good. But in that, if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't have realized everything that I had inside of me. My friend, Andrew James, he said to me when I lost my job, he said, until you feel the pressure of life, you'll never actually know the full potential of what you're able to do.
Ooh.
The reality
it brings
is,
out your strength.
Yeah, the reality is that until you throw me out into the wilderness,
Yeah.
right, for me to fend for myself, I'll never know I could fish, or I could hunt, or I could build a tent, or I could create a fire.
Yeah.
Because I have to.
Yeah.
You know, until you're forced to do something, and it's something about humanity. We have to be forced and pushed into something to create that urgency to really see what we're made out of.
Yeah.
And when we do that, great things happen. And I just feel so blessed and so energized. And that's why every day for me, it's like, every day's not perfect. I'm a stay-at-home dad. Big up to stay-at-home dads. Love y'all. Respect to y'all. There are stay-at-home dads as well as stay-at-home moms. And I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that's a grind too. And that's not always the prettiest thing. But I look back at where I'm coming from, and this is a piece of cake right now. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That was really special. I love hearing stories like that because it just shows that like the most successful and most legendary people have had the hardest times and are now making a huge impact in this world. And again, your goal, like you said before, is to leave a legacy for your kids, for your family, in the arts, everything. So thank you for that.
No problem. No problem.
So Digital Storyteller, I know you kind of touched on it before, but why does that name mean so much to you? And when did you know that was the name that you were going to choose for your business?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like it's weird with me. There are moments where people get sent into my life and things happen. I'll give you an example. A lot of people don't know that for about 12 years, I ran my own theater production company called Word Made Flesh Productions. That was spawned out of somebody coming to me and seeing me, do my film and television acting and doing all these creative things. And they said, well, what are you going to do with it? And I was like, I'm going to start my own production company. And they're like, well, what are you going to name it? Word Made Flesh. Like that it literally, like certain things just drop in me. So when I sat down with one of my friends, Martin Brown from Martin Brown Photography, he said to me, like, Tristan, like what he just called me over to his house and we were talking and he said, like, what distinguishes you? Like when you walk into a room, like how do you distinguish yourself from somebody else? And I really had to think about it. And I was like, I tell digital stories. I'm a digital storyteller. And he said, that's it. And what he was saying, what he was referring to was, what makes you special? Like why? Like everybody takes photos, right? If somebody says to you, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm a photographer." That's great, but everybody says they're a photographer.
Yeah.
Right? There's something innately special about you, Jody Ann. How are you now branding yourself in a way and presenting yourself in a way that allows you to stand out from the crowd? You don't just take photos. I've seen your photos. I've seen the photos that you just took of me today. You don't just take photos. You communicate something powerful through that medium of photography. So how are you now gonna position yourself as an authority, as a unique voice within this space? So for me, the digital storyteller is me telling myself and the world that I am a unique, blessed, creative and inspired individual, and I want to inspire others. So it's almost like it's like you're pronouncing yourself, and I know that may sound cocky or may sound like a lack of humility, but sometimes as an artist, I feel like we have this backwards. We always feel like, okay, the quieter we are, the more reserved we are, the more like
mysterious.
Mysterious we are, the better we are as artists. No, not necessarily. If you're dope, you're dope. And that's okay to say, hey, you know what? I do some dope work.
Yeah.
Not all my work's dope, but I do some dope work. I can say, some of my work is pretty dope.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? And it goes, again, just going back to the whole idea of being the digital storyteller. I am the digital storyteller. It's my identity. It's in my DNA. I tell stories, and I use digital media to tell effective, impactful, extremely emotional and powerful stories. So that's what I'm about, and that's why it's important to me, and that's why I think that personal branding should be important to everybody.
Thank you, Tristan. Right. That was a beautiful answer. Wow. Beautiful answer. Okay, because my tongue, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what does being a creative entrepreneur mean to you?
It means that I get the opportunity to spend more time with my family. I get the opportunity to create my own economy. I have the privilege of doing my own taxes. Oh, God. I have the ability to maximize my potential. And what I mean by that is when somebody hires you for a job, you apply for a job, whatever else, whatever. You pick any job, pizza guy, lawyer, whatever. Whatever that corporation is paying you, they're paying you based upon what the perceived value that they see in you and what they can afford to pay you, not necessarily what you're worth.
Okay.
So that's something that we have to understand, right? When we do our 9-to-5s, they're not necessarily paying you what you're worth. They're paying you what they can afford to pay you.
Okay.
Based upon their perceived value of you in the business, whatever else, right? The reality is that when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have a ceiling on your income or your revenue potential, because now your revenue potential is dependent on the choices and the work that you do and the streams that you create for yourself. That's powerful. It's like a faucet, right? I go to a faucet, I turn on the cold water. The further I open up the faucet, the faster and harder the water comes. The more I tighten it, the less the water comes, and then it goes to a drip, and then it turns off, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your work ethic and your discipline and your focus. As an entrepreneur, you have the control to open up that faucet. You have the control to close that faucet. Some days I just want to go, I'll take a week off and I'll go on vacation, whatever else, right? I'm closing that faucet a little bit, right? And then other weeks, more like other months, I'll work 12-hour days straight. That faucet is on all the time. That's the power of being a creative entrepreneur. The other thing is that creatives are a lot, they have a lot of power. They have more power than they realize, because we get to create pieces of art or work. Our work allows us to create dialogue in culture. We are the culture curators or whatever you call them. We are the culture. We are the creatives that allow for us to create conversations and dialogues that people have trouble speaking about or talking about. So, for instance, again, I can use the example last year, Black Man in a White World. I created that visual journal because that was something that was speaking to me about what, the whole idea of what was or what is the Canadian Black experience, right? What is the Black experience in Canada? What does that look like? I wanted to create a piece, a visual journal that kind of represented that started that conversation.
Yeah.
If I wasn't creative, I wouldn't be able to create that. You see what I'm saying? We are the culture shapers and changers and movers, right? So we have that ability, and I love that. That makes me feel alive. I have the ability to to take a photo or to create a film that will speak to the hearts of people. Last year, I did a film on Father's Day and released it on Father's Day about me becoming a father, my experiences. That was that got shared 20,000 times or whatever, because it spoke to people, right? So that whole idea is really important. No problem.
Tristan, I could sit here literally for another 3 hours talking to you and just hearing more of your story, but
we gotta go.
It's
we gotta
No, it's not even but. Sorry, I don't know why I said but yeah, we do gotta go.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
But no, honestly, thank you so much for sharing your amazing, inspiring story. This has to be a part 2. I already know this is part 2. But I do one more question I have for you is, I like to ask a question to everybody. What's the one thing you can't leave the house without, minus your cell phone?
Okay, wow. One thing. Okay, so the one thing that I cannot leave home without is I have to, 9 times out of 10, I have to walk with a camera.
Okay.
No matter what. From the time that I purchased my first DSLR, it's just something that's in me. So there's always camera gear in my car, but specifically I walk with something, a Sony camera, Canon camera, whatever. I just have to have a camera with me.
Okay. Perfect. That's perfect.
Right.
I was in my head. I was like, he's gonna say camera. He's gonna say camera.
Yeah,
and you're like,
no, because it's just
camera.
No, because I'm thinking, but I'm like, I literally
don't fight it.
Yeah, there's times where I bring a camera, I never even take it out, but I feel like it just feels right for me to have it with me.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tristan. Oh
No
my
problem.
goodness. And everyone, I will definitely provide Tristan's information at the bottom of the blog. Can you please share with us what your socials are and where we can find you?
My socials for Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else is at Tristan Barrocks. That's Tristan Barrocks. So Bar and Rocks. That's my last name. Tristan is my first name, at Tristan Barrocks. You can actually just Google me and you'll get like the first 3 or 4 pages will just be me. So, and I'm not trying to...
Because he's that flossy.
I'm not trying to floss.
Just saying. Just he's that flossy.
Straight up to your face.
So like I said, guys, I'll provide it at the bottom of the blog as always. And please, we are on SoundCloud. I'm just promoting us because we have new streams that we're on now. So we're on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Castbox, of course, Apple Podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And Google Play Music. So please, guys, share, like, rate, subscribe.
Yep.
Let us know what you like, what you don't like, because I love to hear feedback and to make this better and keep this going for you guys. So thank you so much, and we're out. Bye.
Bye.